3 days after the party I was folding laundry when my sister called. Her name lit up my phone like a warning sign. I almost didn't answer. "Hey," she said, her voice light, almost cheerful. Too cheerful. "So, we need to talk." I leaned against the washing machine, bracing myself. "About Lily's party." Then. Not exactly. My stomach dropped. She launched into it like it was the most reasonable thing in the world. My parents were short on money. An emergency had come up. Medical bills. Repairs. Something vague and unprovable. They needed $1,850. And since I was the most stable one, it made sense for me to help. I laughed. Not because it was funny, but because the audacity stole my breath. "You ghosted my daughter's birthday," I said slowly. "And now you want nearly $2,000? "It's not like that," she snapped. "You're being dramatic." Dramatic. The word echoed like an old insult pulled from storage. I told her no. Clearly. I explained that I was barely keeping my head above water myself. That I had rent, school fees, groceries. That I'd already spent more than I could afford trying to make my child feel loved by people who couldn't even show up. The line went cold. Not disconnected. Just silent. The next morning my mother called. Then my father. Then my aunt. The same script, different voices. Guilt wrapped in concern. Anger disguised as disappointment. "You owe us," my father said. "After everything we've done for you." I wanted to scream. Instead I asked, "What about Lily?" Silence again. By the third day the messages turned ugly. Accusations. My sister texted, "If you don't help, don't expect help from us ever again." I typed back before I could stop myself. "You weren't there when it mattered anyway." That was when the knock came. Hard. Dark. Official. 2 police officers stood outside my door. Hands resting casually on their belts. My heart slammed against my ribs as Lily peeked from behind my legs. "Ma'am," one of them said, "we received a report about a financial dispute." My mother had called the police. Claimed I was withholding money that belonged to the family. That I'd promised to help and then refused. Lies stacked neatly like bricks. I stood there shaking, humiliation burning my skin as neighbors watched from behind curtains. I explained everything. The party. The silence. The demand. My refusal. One officer nodded slowly. "This is a civil matter," he said. "They shouldn't have involved us." But the damage was done. That night, after Lily fell asleep, I sat alone in the dark, replaying every memory, every compromise I'd made to keep peace. I realized something terrifying and freeing at the same time. They didn't see me as family. They saw me as a resource. And resources, once depleted, are discarded. My phone buzzed again. A message from my sister. "You've made your choice." I stared at it, heart pounding, knowing that whatever came next would force me to make one too. The balloons were already wilting when I realized something was wrong. Pink ones sagged against the living room ceiling, their ribbons curling like tired smiles. The cake, custom-made, vanilla with strawberries, my daughter's favorite, sat untouched on the table, the frosting letters still sharp, still hopeful. The clock on the wall ticked so loudly I swear it was mocking me. Every second passed like a question no one wanted to answer. Where is everyone? I checked my phone again. No missed calls. No messages. Not even a lazy excuse typed with one hand. Just silence. The kind that feels intentional. "Mom!" Lily tugged my sleeve. She was 7 that day, wearing the sparkly dress she'd picked herself, twirling earlier in front of the mirror like she'd stepped into a fairy tale. Now she stood still, eyes scanning the empty chairs we'd borrowed from the neighbors. Did Grandma get lost? My throat tightened. "Maybe traffic," I said, forcing a smile that tasted like metal. "You know how your uncle always drives." I didn't believe it. Not for a second. This party wasn't last minute. Invitations had gone out weeks ago. I'd confirmed attendance twice. My mother had promised she'd bring Lily's cousins. My sister had insisted on choosing the gift herself. Even my father, who rarely left his recliner, had said, I'll be there. Wouldn't miss it. Yet here we were. Just me, Lily, and the sound of plastic balloons slowly surrendering to gravity. As Lily went back to coloring at the table, pretending not to notice, I remembered all the ways my family had mastered absence. My wedding day when my sister arrived late and left early. My job promotion dinner when my parents cancelled because something came up and never explained what. The countless times I'd been told I was too sensitive, that I expected too much. Still, this was different. This was my child. I stepped into the kitchen and let the tears fall silently, gripping the counter so hard my knuckles turned white. I had worked extra shifts to afford this party. I'd skipped lunches, sold an old bracelet my grandmother once gave me. I wanted Lily to feel chosen, celebrated, surrounded. Instead, she was learning a lesson I'd hoped to shield her from. Sometimes the people who say they love you the loudest are the first to disappear. When the doorbell finally rang, an hour late, I almost laughed from relief. I wiped my face and rushed to the door, heart pounding. It was the delivery driver. With the bouncy castle. I signed the receipt, thanked him, and watched as he left the inflatable dinosaur in our tiny backyard, towering and absurd. Felt like a cruel joke. Party attraction with no guests. By the time evening came, Lily had fallen asleep on the couch, party hat crooked, frosting smudged on her cheek. I carried her to bed, kissed her forehead, and whispered an apology she wouldn't fully understand. That night my phone finally buzzed. A message from my mother. Sorry, things came up. Will explain later. No apology. No mention of Lily. Just later. I stared at the screen until it dimmed, something cold settling in my chest. I didn't know it yet, but this silence wasn't the end of the story. It was the opening move. And the next message would change everything. The days after the police visit felt unreal, like walking through a fog that refused to lift. Lily became quieter, more observant. She asked fewer questions but watched my face closely, as if searching for cracks. One evening she asked, "Did I do something wrong?" That broke me. I knelt in front of her, hands trembling as I held her small shoulders. "No," I said, voice thick. "You did nothing wrong. Some people forget how to love properly. That's on them. Not you." Saying it out loud made it true, for her and for me. I blocked their numbers the next morning. Every single one. The silence that followed wasn't heavy like before. It was clean, honest. Without their constant noise, I started noticing things. How exhausted I'd been trying to earn affection. How small I'd made myself to avoid conflict. How my marriage had crumbled years earlier under the weight of everyone else's expectations. How my job struggles had been worsened by always bailing someone out. I began saying no at work too. No to unpaid overtime. No to guilt-driven favors. It was terrifying. And exhilarating. Weeks later I got a letter. Formal. Cold. My family was threatening legal action over the money. I didn't panic. I took it to a legal clinic. The lawyer read it once and laughed. "They have nothing," she said. "This is intimidation." For the first time in years I slept through the night. On Lily's 8th birthday it was just the two of us again, but this time it was intentional. We baked cupcakes together, frosting everywhere, laughing until our sides hurt. No balloons trying too hard. No empty chairs. Just us. As she blew out her candles, she closed her eyes tightly. I wondered what she wished for. Later, as I tucked her into bed, she whispered, "I wished that we stay like this. Happy." I kissed her forehead, tears finally free. "Me too." Inside my phone buzzed once more. An unknown number. I didn't answer. Because some doors, once closed, aren't meant to be reopened. And the bravest thing I ever did wasn't giving them money. It was choosing myself and my daughter, when everyone else chose to walk away. But the consequences of that choice were still unfolding.